Now, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to our first meeting. This is our Progetto Alpha and Campus Salute. This is a side event that takes place inside the Forum 2022. Now, let me thank the Secretariat of the Forum 2022. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to, to share some of the experiences we are having here in Italy. So volunteering services and civil service. We have top-notch speakers. We have Niccolò Gennaro, the president of CSV in Padua and Rovigo. Good evening, Niccolò. Okay, a director, not a president. Okay, director. Okay, sorry. We also have Enrico Maria Boletti, the president of the National Civil Service Forum. Good evening, Pasquale, and good evening, everyone. Now, before getting into the thick of our debate tonight, I also would like to thank the translator, I guess, so that we have, many people getting connected from many different areas of the world. Maurizio is the translator tonight. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Okay, then, so let's start the ball rolling. We have to say that our associations, Progetto Alpha and Campus Salute, that I represent, have been organizing the so-called participation, especially youth participation. Campus Salute, thanks to young people, we want to foster the prevention culture. Now, these two associations have met some time ago, and this is not by chance, because thanks to our volunteering work, we've been able, if you will, to make sure, young people can now understand and to be aware of the importance of the Agenda 2030 for the sustainable development. So on behalf of the 2030 Agenda for the sustainable development, we've been cooperating with the National Forum of Civil Service, in particular with the Messi Foundation, because we would like to create a civil service project. Once again, let me remind you, this is one of the key topics that we will be talking about tonight. This is one of our best practices we would like to introduce during this forum so that you can familiarize with the Italian experience. Of course, I'm sharing, this information with all of the people who will follow us thanks to the UN social media. I also would like to thank all the volunteers. So thank you so much for helping me, especially Francesca Ariemma. So without further ado, let me give the floor to the director of CSV Padua, so Niccolò Gennaro. Niccolò, during this, pandemic era, what's the meaning of volunteering services, and what about the role of the youth or young people in terms of volunteering? Thank you, Pasquale, and good evening, everyone. Well, I'd like to start a very general, consideration. COVID, of course, was and still is, unfortunately, a very severe deep crisis that hit all of the layers of our societies, every single country. So it's a pandemic, so it's a global pandemic. It's a crisis. So this means we have seen the limits of our societies or human organizations, but also the limits of the resources that human communities have. Now, the most striking limit was, for example, that also here, the very rich Western world, including Europe, of course, we have some social injustice cases, which are very heavy, very severe. For example, just think of the, homes or apartments where people live. Now, when we were forced to, experience lockdown, we understood that not all dwellings are the same. Some families had to spend months in very, very difficult situations, so much more difficult than many other people. Access to the internet is not yet guaranteed to all. Also in terms of, schooling, of course, I'm talking about students. There were huge differences between different types of families in order to take advantage of, remote schooling because of the lack of devices or access to technology for some people. The crisis has also shown us that there's precarious jobs, well, more and more precarious, temporary jobs. And this means fragile situations for many people because, well, people had to ask the local government to be helped, for example, including food or many other products and services just to face their primary needs. We also understood that there's another fragility in our society, which is the public health service or the national health service. The NHS, well, in the past years, also past decades, well, have been underfunded and budgets have been slashed. So we saw the negative consequences of the reduction of the NHS budget. Now, on the other side, we've also seen many resources coming from our own communities. For example, something that people didn't remember. Well, we have realized how important it is for our societies to have a government-controlled, a national-controlled organization being able to manage products and services. So this great organization has sort of, slowed down some of the problems or even limited, or I mean, some of the most severe problems. So the National Health Service has shown fragilities, but at the same time, the same NHS has shown its importance. Thanks to its existence and its organization, the National Health Service, well, took up many difficult, situations, well, including, I mean, COVID, that we have never experienced. And once again, we have understood it is very important to have a solid, healthy National Health Service. We also saw another resource, sort of, unexpected or unforeseen, that especially soon after the explosion of the pandemic turned out to be very important. I mean, the willingness of central governments, especially here in the European Union, to adopt a collaborative approach. So an approach based on solidarity that has generated extraordinary, exceptional, never seen before measures. For example, the European next generation EU, basically, so the recovery and resilience fund, with plenty of measures guaranteed by the European Union. So the states of the Union can now implement all of these funds to restart after the COVID-related difficulties. There's another major resource that we have seen thanks to the pandemic, I have to say. Well, I'm exactly talking about volunteering services. I mean, all of a sudden, we realized that solidarity among people and organized volunteering services are a great heritage, a great asset of our communities. I mean, we understood that this is once again a strategic asset that we can all leverage upon, especially for all of the democratic countries. Once again, to see an advantage or an asset that gives us the possibility to imagine a beautiful future, a beautiful development. We can also imagine the, let's say, communities also, and especially when we are right in the middle of a big pandemic, just like the situation we had with COVID-19. So the same happens with, energy, transport systems, the industry, farming. So many, if you will, strategic assets that every single country has. Well, we have rediscovered the solidarity and volunteering services. This is what we've been repeating over and over, especially in the hardest months. So all of this has to be fostered, strengthened, promoted, and encouraged in many different dimensions. So exactly in Italy, well, we have understood that there are two very important truths that concern volunteering services and solidarity. Now, first of all, we have plenty of solidarity around us. Now, this is not, to be, taken for granted. I mean, solidarity is around us. It is huge. It is especially carried out and performed by young people, and we can count on it every time we need it. I mean, every time we have some natural catastrophe, that in Italy we have quite often, earthquakes and then floods, mudslides, so a very fragile natural and artistic heritage. So every time there's a crisis of this type, well, there's an incredibly strong manifestation of solidarity from our citizens, especially the youngest ones. This kind of, volunteering or solidarity is a big, big wave. Now, it is especially based on young people because also in the hardest months of lockdown and then during COVID-19, volunteering has been managed, by young people. Around 70% of all the people who just wanted to help their own local communities. For example, for delivering foods at home or delivering drugs, pharmaceutical drugs to the elderly, and then also offering volunteering services in terms of educational services. Many people have helped, children, students do their homework, especially in fragile families. Well, once again, 70% of these volunteers were young people. They just raised their hands. When I say young, I mean under 35. So they offered, their help and their time to the local communities to do something and to offer help. So we can count on this huge solidarity, but on the other side, we also saw another very important situation. I mean, if this solidarity is not led, coordinated, managed, and focused or targeted on the real needs of our community, well, this big asset may be dispersed or it may get lost. So it may be something very kind, very nice, but in some cases it may not be possible to implement it. So who managed, to coordinate this incredible system? Well, the so-called organized solidarity. This is the second thing we have, understood clearly during the COVID emergency. We have understood that in order for it to be effective, solidarity needs associations, groups of volunteers, and the so-called third sector, as we call it in Italy, which is, the sector working together with the first sector, which is the public sector or the public administration. The second sector is the private, profit-making, companies and organizations. So the third sector combines, solidarity elements, but it is basically structured just like a company, just like an organization. So we have some organizational rules, so we have specific functions so that we can be effective and long-lasting. Well, once again, the third sector, because of course it is able to cooperate with public bodies, public organizations, and local institutions. So, well, we've been able to take advantage of this, availability and generosity, turning them into a key value for our local communities. This means our communities have really been able to, act the shock represented by COVID-19. So we've been able to sort of, dampen the shock. And once again, we have discovered the existence of people, very lucky people and then very unfortunate people. So many different types of people to be helped. So once again, volunteering or solidarity is definitely a strategic asset. And just like all the other assets, what we need is a major investment in those infrastructures that allow the survival of solidarity. It is a hidden, concealed, sort of underground structure. We work every single day, maybe in the shadow of our local communities, in a very quiet, situation. But then during COVID, people understood that we are there. So it's, once again, key asset. And it's great to have this asset that, of course, has to work at best. Now, the organization of the third sector is not something you can, set up overnight. I mean, it takes a lot of time to create an organization belonging to the third sector, to take care of it, to make sure it can grow. We have to count on the commitment of many people with continuous, seamless, support. We need money, of course, or financial support. So if we want our country or our countries or Europe in general, but also all the countries around the world, so if we want those countries to trust this asset, to be counting on it, well, we have to invest on this asset so that we can really create a new space for participation, especially for volunteering services managed by young people, so that we can really take better care of our local communities. Nicolo, thank you so much. Thank you for your speech. Well, we now have, let's say, the spotlight on one of the basic considerations that should be taken into account by legislators. So we don't just have to talk about, the national policies. I mean, we have to be international. Volunteering services have to be organized. So we cannot just, exploit the spirit of solidarity, which is, of course, fundamental soon after a crisis or an emergency. But then all of this may not be effective enough to take up challenges or face problems or even needs the daily needs of people who need our help. So especially, when we reach the local communities, the local level, and of course, so we have some, specific needs in small villages, maybe with some groups of young people trying to offer volunteering service as well. This is difficult, to organize because probably we don't have the right tools that we would need. We are definitely able to offer these tools, and we can also obtain them thanks to the universal civil service. So here we have one of the top experts in Italy. He has written plenty of material and maybe pages of the history of this organization for our country, and this is one of the leading associations in Europe and in the world, considering what the National Civil Service Forum does for young people. Enrico Maria Bolelli is the president of the National Civil Service Forum. I'm sure he has important, information and useful tools that we can also share with our international audience tonight. Thank you, Enrico. Well, Pasquale, thank you so much. Well, I'd like to echo the words of Nicolo Gennaro on the important role of volunteering service, and especially on the importance of the so many young volunteers during the COVID emergency. Now, you know that Italy has been hit hard by COVID-19, maybe the first country to be hit in the Western world. So this means that, of course, we were not ready. So the National Health Service, the institutions, but also solidarity and volunteers. Of course, we had to, kind of receive this kind of shock. And of course, we had to organize a reaction as quickly as possible. So I have to say that the key driver, if you will, to activate young people during the pandemic, I mean, many of them have asked to be a spontaneous, volunteer. But of course, the central government has been able to use the so-called civil service in order to help people during the COVID-19 emergency. Now, maybe you don't know what the Italian civil service is. Okay, so let me tell you how this service is managed by the central government. Now, first and foremost, this is not a project. The civil service is a sort of a body or an institution here in the Italian Republic. Now, the main aim is to protect, the motherland, which is specific concept. But once again, the protection of the country is basically the key topic. Of course, I'm not talking about the protection of boundaries or the military defense. I'm talking about the defense or the protection of those in need, especially the weakest layers of the population. It is one of the needs of the country in order to protect also the historical and artistic heritage. This is what we do thanks to favoring progress of our local communities, and we also want to defend and protect it with the civil protection. So once again, this is a very, very modern concept of protecting our country. And once again, this is the general, overarching target. In Italy, we have two organizations, if you will, that protect, the country, the Universal Civil Service and the Army. So this is a very important, regulatory framework so that you can really understand that the central government invites young people to participate in the life of the country. The age limit is 18 to 28. And so, of course, you have to be of age, and then all the way to 28 years before they start their adult life and maybe their professional life. Now, as for the duration, well, we have 12 months, so 1 year. Inside our projects, we have a highly structured, long experience. Once again, 12 months. This means, young people can really get a beautiful, deep experience, also in terms of, training and education that they acquire. In general, it is quite a long experience, which is a great asset for young people. If you do something, if you work in a group, in a team, if you do this for 1 year, maybe on topics that you didn't know before. So we are basically testing or experimenting. Well, this is great for the education of young people. Now, the central government pays a small monthly amount, which is now 400 euros a month. They work 25 hours a week, so they have basically half day for this experience, and then almost all of these young people are students. At the end of the civil service, they also have beautiful benefits, which is this kind of incentive offered to them by the central government. It may be university credits or certificates of attendance of these skills that they have acquired or learned. They also have some credits for the public, let's say, jobs. So, for example, if you want to be hired by a local administration, they can say they have spent 1 year doing a civil service. Okay, so this is the regulatory framework, which is maybe the least interesting thing. But anyway, what is even more interesting, and by the way, this is what Niccolo just said in his speech, is that this is the very first opportunity for many, many young people to become a volunteer. So they are, they really want to be an active part of our community, because living into a project means, managing responsibilities towards, well, other people or your country. I have to say that, once again, the key topic, in our opinion, is the experience. This is what we highlight, okay? The experience is even more important than training or education, because we think young people have to be, accompanied into adulthood. So volunteering services are not a school. This is not an educational service. It's a very rich experience. Once again, it educates you a lot, but it is especially plenty of skills that you acquire during this experience. These are the real outcomes of the project, okay? This is not the main objectives onto which we work. I have to say that these young people, at the end of their experience, well, they say that this is life-changing. They have become adults, they have to manage their own responsibilities. And then, of course, well, in many cases, this is the first, monthly money that they receive. This is what we've been doing in Italy for 50 years. We have 60,000 young people doing this. So once again, this means so many young people that every single year have the possibility to have this first experience in terms of volunteering and or, solidarity. So as I said before, this is a tool that our country has used during emergencies. So there was a lockdown in Italy. I mean, we started the first lockdown March the 9th, 2020, and 1 month later, so April the 16th, where the whole country was locked down, the civil service stopped on the 9th of March, but we were able to recover restart our activities. We have completely changed the priorities, and we started working to help those in need. And young people have responded positively. Almost all the young people doing the civil service, of course, they also had to comply with lockdown rules. We called them back, and they all accepted to resume work. So for our country, this is a beautiful, positive example, and it is also an indicator of how important it is to keep, relationships with these young people alive. Because without this opportunity, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to call them swiftly and very quickly, and especially to discover, that these young people, if possible, really wanted to help other people. So the Italian civil service experience is the oldest experience in Europe. Once again, the Italian one is the oldest one and even the most structured one. Our friends from France came here to study our model. Now they have a specific service. France is bigger, so their numbers are bigger. But France made a bigger investment than the investment that Italy still does on our civil service. The European Union created also the European Solidarity Centers. So once again, they are based on the Italian experience, and this is also based on, in general, the European volunteering services. So that experience was less structured, spontaneous, and shorter. So our civil service has given an extraordinary, thrust and encouragement to this type of service all over Europe. And we think we can also do more than this. We can do better. So on a European level, so that young people from all over Europe can offer volunteering services, and not just in their country, but also abroad. So in my opinion, this is the real most important investment. I'm sure this is useful. We have to do this for our young people. So the volunteering experience in the third sector is now structured. Of course, we need our own infrastructures. We have to be supported by all the countries of Europe. But let's say the adult volunteering services that young people can keep offering, well, in my opinion, this is a type of service that young people have to become familiar with. So the civil service may be just the first initial opportunity to understand the third sector, to step into the third sector, understanding that every single citizen can become an active citizen. This is fundamental to strengthen relationships. Countries, communities may become stronger and more resilient. Last but not least, just thinking about the education of new young generations. It concerns everyone, because volunteering is it's a sort of an education to be more social, to tolerance, hosting people. Well, I think that it is now urgent right now to talk to young people, and we have to really, teach them these values. An example may be the war in Ukraine. We keep talking about peace. We feel an urgent need to talk about this because, of course, we don't want to have other wars or other conflicts that may be armed conflicts, but also social conflicts, famine, or the crisis of raw materials, which is something we are experiencing today. And of course, we're very worried about this. So all of this may lead to other conflicts also in our communities. Once again, we have to educate, we have to train the new generations. Our target today is to educate, young people so that they have the right skills, so they can measure their performances. Also volunteering services, in many cases, they want us to certify, to formalize the experiences and the performances of young people. But, efficiency or effectiveness are not important when it comes to peace. So what we need to do is to talk about education with our young people. To do this, they have to have the right time to go through their experiences and to become adults. They will have the time to become professionals. So they do have time to do this. I mean, they go to school, they go to university, college, vocational training. So they're really very strong and ready for their professional life. But once again, what we need to do now is to really work on people. I mean, education to participation, active citizenship, or those values which are, the main source of inspiration for peace and our democracies. I think that if you consider, I mean, all what we want to do for young people today, I'm sure that this is much more urgent, even more urgent than the general professional education. Enrico, thank you so much. This is very interesting. And then thank you for being so, I mean, specific on the main features of the civil service. So we have had the opportunity to compare our services in the past. Civil service and volunteering services in general can be a sort of an incubator. I mean, we can create participation, and I have to say that maybe this was a little, forgotten. We have to, educate our young people to convey positive values that will then create a different type of education. So we can also avoid or prevent, difficult situations that you can, that you have mentioned. I'd like to ask Niccolo the following question. In 2020, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, your city, Padova, was the European capital of volunteering services. I mean, apart from your own experiences, I'm sure that you have to, completely reorganize your services because of the emergency. But what is the message from Padova as the European capital of volunteering? And can you also name some of the experiences in terms of education to young people that you would like to, share with us? Well, Pasquale, thank you so much for this, interesting question. Well, yes, I think that my city, Padova, during 2020, well, exactly the COVID year, now the city has been, in my opinion, a very interesting example, because just because we have been the European capital city of volunteering services, we've been offered the opportunity to do something different, to go along new pathways. And some of these experiences have been approved and, let's say, replicated elsewhere. So this is a key, a sort of a set of, experiences or a knowledge base that now we would like to share with many other cities in Europe, but also, hopefully, in the rest of the world. So it's been difficult, but once again, we have received, I mean, this opportunity from Europe exactly in the COVID year. This means that the city of Padua was a little bit more, if you will, ready or prepared to deal with the consequences of the health crisis due to COVID-19. Because before the explosion of the pandemic, we had worked for 18 months here. So plenty of groups, volunteers, the universities, associations, so the Chamber of Commerce, profit-making companies. So we have already cooperated with many tools that we have created in the city, the so-called, WGs, or working groups. Now, working groups, WGs, were, if you will, different types of places where many different organizations and associations with plenty of different, attitudes. Well, we all worked together, and we decided to talk about the future development of the local communities, so of our region, starting from the real essential elements of the volunteer actions and the civic commitment, which is not efficiency or effectiveness or skills or specific professional skills, the very, if you will, rational skills in terms of strategic decisions, which are made in a specific region or place. But, we really wanted to work a lot on values. So the real approach to the rest of the community, relationships with other people, in a way, removing boundaries inside which, we talk about specific subjects, and then we usually analyze them separately as if they were silos. But, all of these subjects are interconnected and intertwined. So the starting point was a metaphor. We said, well, here, everyone is a volunteer. You can be a businessman, you can be a teacher, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a janitor, you can be a local administrator or a local politician. Well, every type of person, so all the people are doing volunteering services, well, they have a specific professional role during the day. They are included into a highly organized social system that, of course, creates plenty of negative consequences for the environment, for the community, for the society, but also for the so-called social assistance. But then when that person goes back home, he or she changes clothes and he or she becomes a volunteer, going back into, the community, trying to find a solution to all of the consequences of the actions that he or she has performed while working. So, the same society that generates some injustice or fragilities or negative impacts on the environment or on the community, well, we have we are sort of bipolar, right? So during the day, so during the working day, we sort of generate problems, and in the night, if you will, becoming volunteers, well, we try and solve the problems we have created during the day. So once again, my city, Padova, so the European capital of volunteering, we didn't want to just, celebrate the volunteers or the beautiful souls resolving problems, taking care of the city or the landscape, the nature, or the people who need us. But we did the opposite. We just wanted to make sure that volunteering services could be able to talk to every single partner. So every single, partner could talk to us. So once again, we just didn't want to be, identified as professionals, but we have highlighted the sense of community, being ready to take up the challenges of the future. Now, all of these challenges are included into the United Nations 2030 agenda. So inside the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have taken the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, so we have created working groups. We have convened local organizations, so the school system, institutions, volunteering services, and many other, associations. So we have started from the analysis of the needs and the values of volunteers. So we decided to take a long journey to try and imagine our city in the future. So in 2020, 2 years ago, based on this, perspective, we should have organized plenty of national and international meetings, just because, we wanted to share all of our food for thought coming from the national and European community. Now, that was not possible because of COVID. Once again, because of the explosion of COVID-19, we had to change our commitment. So from a cultural, intellectual, if you will, a sharing, if you will, approach, we have to turn all of this into a practical, immediate volunteering action in order to, solve all of the problems caused by COVID-19. So this is what we have done before COVID. We had already shared so many things. And this is why people thought we were the right example, because instead of having plenty of different situations, the first thing we have done in terms of volunteering services, the local organizations, the local police stations, the Chamber of Commerce, the profit-making companies, and so on and so forth. So we put all of these players together around the same table. And the question was, okay, what can we do all together? So volunteering services, profit-making companies, and many other associations, what can we do to take up the current challenges? How can we solve the problems we see here around us every day? So volunteering services keep track of the fragilities of our communities. So this means that, of course, the rest of the community, the local administrators, were kept informed of, for example, the homeless or fragile people, senior citizens, the elderly. So once again, we've been able, to collect plenty of, let's say, information from the ground up. And we have been able to share all of the difficult situations, many people experiencing the negative consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this was a major turning point. So people have realized that there were many problems around us. And then every organization started a sort of a reaction in order to give some relief to this very fragile situation. So, for example, we have maybe the owner of a company given the possibility to the homeless to use their kitchens to cook food. And then we have rented a hotel to host the homeless. We also have the groups of volunteers with cooks and many other people from the restaurants of the city. Once again, we have helped, the homeless, and we have served, food in the evening for 3 consecutive months. So people have understood that there were many fragile people around us. At the end of this experience, some of the homeless have been offered a job in the restaurants that fed them until some days before. I have many, many examples like this, but this was a very significant one. I mean, the local community started analyzing its own fragilities or weaknesses. We have created a coordinated set of actions, starting from the most extreme needs. We have been able to become stronger, to build a stronger service, and we've been able to sort of reduce the impact of COVID-19. So once again, Padova as a European capital of volunteering services. I mean, the key message we have to highlight is to get out of every single boundary, every single silo. We are a community. Volunteering means people doing good, but these people have an incredible value, the value of doing something good, creating inclusive communities, allowing our communities to imagine the future, even when we may think that there is no future for everyone. Once again, as a European capital of volunteering, we support the proposal from the European Volunteering Service to name 2025 as the European Volunteering Year. This is a campaign that we have launched just some weeks ago, and that we support and foster it strongly, so that every single European institution may work for 1 year on the fact of giving support, help, and strength to the organized volunteering services. At the same time, we would like to promote this at a global level. So volunteering has to become, or has to be identified as a UNESCO heritage. We think this is a fundamental step forward. It is also a useful step forward, because the civil society, and especially institutions from all over the world, can actually and at last start a long debate. Volunteering services do not play a marginal, unimportant role of our life. Well, we have to keep thinking about the future and the priorities of our communities and of our countries. Niccolo, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, again, thank you so much for this, request or appeal that you have shared. I think that this can be one of the many possible solutions, that we have put forward. And we also would like to share this to a wider audience. But for the first time, we do have this opportunity so that we can really promote all what we do. We can also share all of our experiences on a national, but also international level. Now, to wrap up and close in the best possible way, I have a question to the president of the Civil Service National Forum. So Nicolo and Enrico, but also me myself, I mean, we talked about the United Nations agenda, so for sustainable development. So I have to say that the youth forum this year, promoted by ECOSOC, well, one of the targets is to find a possible answer to a key question. Can young people be giving us positive energy after the pandemic crisis, which is something that the whole world, had to experience? So again, but after listening to Enrico and Nicolò when talking about the civil service, can we say that this tool is useful for social growth and overcoming the current crisis? And how does it fit into the 2030 UN agenda? Well, Pasquale, thank you so much. Well, first and foremost, the civil service develops all of its projects considering the 2030 objectives from the United Nations. So all of the activities we offer our young people now. So once again, everything is targeted towards the 2030 agenda. Well, not all of the objectives, there are 17 objectives. We only have chosen 11 because the civil service develops social, environmental topics. There are many topics, for example, sustainable energy or work. These are objectives we cannot work on. So on the one side, it is a tool that here in Italy is giving a great contribution to reaching the targets. Of course, I mean, we are just adding small pieces of a huge puzzle. Now, the most important thing is that we are working to educate the young generations to these new topics. Because, when you talk about sustainable development, of course, this is possible provided that, human beings develop the same sustainable development. Okay, so we have to educate young people. We also have to include specific projects when it comes to the future sustainability of our life and of our countries. So this is very important. So this will create a stronger, solid generations, being very aware of the problems around us. So as Nicolò said before, I mean, we have two different roles in the society, okay? We may be entrepreneurs, we can be workers, professionals, employees. So our professional life is one of the two sides of our life. On the other side, we can wear different clothes and we can become a volunteer. So if we are able to work on these values in the next years, I mean, these two, let's say, personas will be the same one. We can have a more cultivated, more sensitive adult society. There is also one specific need, in my opinion, when it comes to sustainable development objectives. I think we can reach sustainable development targets provided that all what we do on a daily basis or projects or investments, well, they have to be sustainable from the human point of view. Because I think that too often, these objectives go through bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is really, impossible to be managed by human beings. So if this happens, we cannot reach sustainable development. So we talked about the civil service experience. Once again, this is a source of education, I mean, for young people. Now, giving young people this beautiful experience, this means that this experience is also sustainable for them. But if you only teach something to them, once again, they may think that, once again, they have to increase or improve their performances. This is what we don't want. Okay, so this is something we see in our professionals communities, or when we work with local institutions, every single project, every action, every objective we have, don't forget, I mean, human beings have to make it. If it's not sustainable for us, the objective is not sustainable for the planet. So we will be working in the civil service. I don't think this is a tool that we can use to solve crisis. Okay, we cannot, ask our young people to do so. It is an experience that they can take advantage of to become adults. Okay, so they are not a tool to help us in an emergency. So thanks to the civil service, young people can also work during emergencies or the third sector or local institutions. Of course, there may be emergencies to manage, like COVID. Today, we are once again, hosting so many refugees arriving in our country. So the civil service with the young people, but also with the third sector organizations and local organizations, all together, we are facing this emergency. The civil service cannot do this by itself. This wouldn't be sustainable. But I think that this is an extraordinary opportunity for education to sustainability we can have. So Italy has an extraordinary civil service organization, after 50 years of history. And I hope many other countries can do the same thing, especially with the new generations, because we would like to build modern and more sustainable societies for the future. Enrico, thank you so much. Niccolo, thank you. Well, this is the wish we have. Thank you, Enrico, for this wish that you have shared with all of us. I mean, hopefully we will be able to create a better future. Well, first of all, we all hope that the war will soon be over, and at last we can have, the only winner has to be diplomacy. It's difficult, but of course we have to have, opportunities and wishes. I'd like to thank the technical support from the UN, especially the Social and Economic Affairs Department. Thank you so much for your support that you've given us in the organization of this side event having to do with the 2022 Youth Forum. I also would like to thank our guests, important speakers, and Niccolo Gennaro, the director of CSV in the cities of Padova and Rovigo, and Enrico Maria Borelli, the president of the Civil Service National Forum. I also would like to thank the translator. Thank you so much for the translation from Italian into English. So you can also follow us onto the UN channels in the next months. I also would like to thank my volunteers team. Thank you so much for your important help for this beautiful side event. Once again, thank you for spending almost 1 hour with us. Hopefully see you soon. Thank you.